And welcome to Cine-pop Reacts. I'm David Alford.
And I'm Madeleine Bullen.
And we are here to cover the WandaVision halftime report. So WandaVision's 9 episodes long. 5 just came out today as we're filming this. And there's 4 more to go. Let's go back to the beginning. WandaVision first comes out, and they start dropping these sitcom trailers. And this is the follow-up to Endgame.
Yeah.
And we're all with it now. So first reaction, what did you think when you first saw the trailers drop?
I really wasn't super excited about it.
See, I wasn't either.
I was just kind of hesitant, and I knew that there was got to be something more to the it's kind of like Dick Van Dyke feel. And so I knew there was something more, but I couldn't tell from the previews what else there was. So I didn't care.
Well, part of it is Wanda and Vision, Scarlet Witch and Vision were not necessarily my favorite storyline in Avengers. Anyway, they got, 5 minutes in Endgame.
Their romance was so fast.
Some moody scene in a European hotel for 3 minutes, followed by the 8-minute fight sequence. And that was pretty much the extent of their storyline. And so for me, I'm not heavily invested in them as a couple.
Well, and the fact that Vision is not a person.
That's
I had a hard time getting super emotionally invested because he doesn't have emotions.
So you're being humanist right now.
A little
you're kind of biased against non-human people.
I just didn't understand how he suddenly had all these complex emotions when he was Jarvis in the voice in Tony's mask. So I had a hard time connecting.
Neither one are well-developed characters. Now, I have no problem with the actors. Elizabeth Olsen's great.
No,
Paul Bettany's great.
They're fantastic.
They've not been given much in the Avengers world so far. Yeah. So for us to now see them as this romantic couple in a sitcom fashion like Dick Van Dyke was a bit of a jump for me. So when we get back into the TV show promo, and I'm like, well, this has nothing to do with MCU in any way, shape, or form, I'm confused.
Yeah.
So I was not thrilled that it was going to be about Wanda and Vision.
Yeah.
So, but the previews drop and people are talking like, well, at least it's something MCU. MCU's got a good track record of being good storytellers and putting together good stuff. So there was always this hope. But to me, I was always kind of looking beyond to Loki going, Loki's going to be awesome.
Yeah, the trailer for that looked super cool.
Falcon and so, those are all looking pretty good. WandaVision, really? So it comes out the first episode. They drop 2 episodes at a time.
Yes.
Which I think was a smart move.
I did not watch them.
You weren't? You didn't even watch it?
I didn't even watch it. It came out, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's all I care." I didn't care. I was so worried too. I'm not a suspense, horror, psychological thriller person. That's not a type of genre that I like or enjoy.
And you got that from the Dick Van Dyke promo? That's
no.
What it was?
All I kept seeing was, it's cute and it's funny until it's not. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
it's like all the headlines and all the reviews were like,
yes.
And I don't like I was like, oh no, it's going to be super eerie. I don't really care. And I don't care enough about them. Right. And there's other shows that are in the MCU canon, like S.H.I.E.L.D. and like Agent Carter that were both in canon that were not good shows.
I didn't watch either one of those.
They were terrible.
And they were network shows.
They were ABC, I believe, shows, and they were not well done. So I was like, oh, it's going to be another one like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or like Agent Carter, where it's going to come, it's going to go, and this one looked kind of creepy, so I was good.
So you're going to pass. I wonder how many people were in the same boat as you. They're like, I don't know, I'm just not into it.
Yeah.
But there were people who were like, frothing at the mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was going to be good. And I think it's probably people who understood the Marvel canon better than those of us who are more casual MCU fans.
Okay, but in the Marvel canon, Scarlet Witch does freak out and create an alternate universe after Vision. Spoiler for if you haven't seen Endgame. If you haven't seen Endgame, stop. But if you have seen Endgame, after Vision dies, because he doesn't just evaporate, he dies. He gets killed.
But does anyone die in MCU?
No. But
really? If you die, you get your own TV show. That's pretty much the way it goes in MCU. So
that's true.
Dying's not a bad thing. It's an extension in your contract.
But in Marvel canon, Scarlet Witch goes insane. She doesn't happily I'm going to create. She loses her mind and creates an alternate reality with Vision. Oh. And then eventually becomes a villain because she and Vision have kids, and then another mystical force comes in and kills her children, where then her already snapped brain goes off.
You just cover 80 comic books.
No, it's this bizarre thread where then she ends up trapping all of the Avengers in an alternate reality, and she becomes the ultimate supervillain that they all have to fight. is the original canon
And
of
it all
Scarlet
starts
Witch.
on the Dick Van Dyke set.
Exactly. So, I
this
also
is-
knew
this
that
is
going
pretty
into it, and
interesting.
I was like, oh no, she's gonna go crazy. This is not gonna be like, oh yay, Wanda. We're gonna be
and
like,
no
oh,
one
no.
knows. She still may.
She
She
may.
still-
But that's the canon, is that she loses her mind. So that's what I was going into it, like, afraid
See,
that...
I think MCU, Marvel fans knew this.
Yes, Marvel fans
Us
knows that
casual
she does this
people-
weird, like, alternate reality thing where she tries to create a normal life for herself.
Gotcha.
But she's insane.
Interesting. So this is kind of where this show comes out of.
Yes, yeah, this show
that's
comes
kind
out of that storyline.
Whether they stick with any of that is totally up for grabs.
That's okay, it's a
That's
terrible
okay if they don't.
storyline. It's universally
Don't go there, MCU.
confusing.
Don't go there. So my problem with Scarlet Witch
Yeah.
is that I don't understand her superpower. Even watching all the Avenger movies, it seems like it's just whatever it needs to be in the moment.
It is, and it is in the comic books as well, and that's like the character. She is the most overpowered Avenger in Marvel. She is like the Deus Ex Machina for the writers. It's like, if I could come in and fix all my mistakes using Scarlet Witch, I will.
I see.
So that's why she doesn't have clear and defined powers. And they eventually like retcon it back in, but
That
like
bothers me in the show.
No,
too.
it really does.
Confuses me
It's so
terribly.
confusing.
We'll get into that in just a second. And Vision is not far different. I don't completely understand what Vision can and
he's
can't
an
do.
Infinity Stone.
Yeah, okay,
and a
yeah.
robot.
Okay, well there you go. That explains it all. I'm all clear now.
He's not quite
See, I'm
Ultron.
a casual MCU fan. I just follow what they tell me in the movies,
Yeah.
and I try to follow it. So I did, bite the bullet and watch
Yeah.
the first 4 episodes. And the first 2 came out together, which I thought was smart of the story runners, because frankly, the first episode by itself, it didn't do it for me. I mean, episode 1 comes out, it's set on the Dick Van. It was fun to see.
It was.
As
I
being
enjoy,
a fan
yeah.
of those old TV shows, having grown up on those old TV shows and reruns, because I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But as far as that happening, that was nostalgic and fun.
Yeah. It was.
It was, though, a little strange with the laugh tracks.
Yeah,
Which
the laugh tracks
makes
was
sense with the shows.
Yeah.
But they were like laughing at things that were kind of funny and things that kind of weren't funny.
and I think it was. I'm sure it was an intentional choice to put the audience, like, there's just little things throughout all of the show that's like just slightly off from the Dick Van Dyke show, or slightly off, that they put in there to like be like, this isn't quite right.
They did a great job of capturing the show.
They really did.
The lighting, the details,
The costumes,
the practical
the set.
props, everything about it made you feel like you were
But
in that
it wasn't a
episode.
replica, which I thought was a really smart choice. They didn't exactly
Copyright
replicate.
rules, they couldn't
right?
replicate
They could not replicate it, and they didn't. And so they kind of just like gave you the sense
Just
of
enough.
it, which I thought was really clever. But yeah, the first episode was not the most engaging.
I was just so confused.
Yeah.
And frankly, because I was waiting for a conflict or a problem that I could latch onto, and it just never came.
Yeah.
There was just this weird alternate world with a different Vision and a different Scarlet Witch than I had ever seen anywhere before. So they were acting differently. They looked differently. So I was having a hard time connecting it to anything. So I did look for details, though, because MCU's famous for Easter eggs.
Yeah.
So the calendar in the Dick Van Dyke kitchen that has the little heart date for the dinner
Yeah.
party on it, the picture on the calendar is a little girl sitting on a long, empty couch with a kind of a mystical, magical television set in it.
Yeah.
It's a little girl sitting by herself.
Uh-huh.
Every episode ends with Wanda and Vision sitting on a couch watching TV together. Is the little girl Wanda as a child?
I don't know.
And this is
Or
the
it's
influence
like-
of these television shows on her is from that an experience where she's sitting in, was it Slovakia or what is she from? Slovenia? I don't know, Slovenia. Something like that. Whatever European country she grew up in.
Yeah.
Which she lost her accent for.
Yes, and then grew up watching American.
Well, a lot of European countries do grow up with American television. So
Well, but
I
she
don't know.
and her brother grew up in prison because they were being experimented on, like, by the
Oh, wow, since childhood?
Yeah.
Oh, this is so sad.
because they're mutants.
So what are the things, Easter eggs and things have you picked up so far?
I honestly haven't been looking at Easter eggs. So I didn't want to watch it, but then I got like relatively invested early on. I was just like, oh, look at the Dick Van Dyke throwbacks.
I know, that was fun.
Didn't trip on the ottoman. Like, I was having this.
He walks through
He
the
walked through
chair,
the chair.
which is
I was
kind of
like,
fun.
oh,
That was a
that's
fun play
fun.
on that.
The-
I was baffled though by the whole plot of this because the dinner party thing.
Yeah.
So Wanda can like snap her fingers and put on a ball gown.
Yes, but she can't snap her fingers and make
She
a dinner.
can't make dinner. I don't know for whatever reason.
I also don't understand how she could turn a uncooked chicken to a charred chicken and then to eggs. Like, I don't understand how
was
that's
fun. It was
part
a
of her
funny bit.
power.
It was a funny
like
bit.
at all.
I get that. It was humor. And it was
mean, it
playing
was
into
funny.
the sitcom thing. But there's several times where like they're like not superheroes.
No.
They're just normal people with all these superpowers that only work
But that's the thing, they're
when the story
so
needs it to.
overpowered. If you let them have all of their powers all the time, there wouldn't be anything they couldn't
as
solve.
a viewer, I don't know where we are in the story. Because I know them as Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, and Vision in MCU.
Right.
Now they're in a sitcom where they can't make a dinner.
No, I was confused
as an
by
audience
that.
member, I don't know where to go with this. I don't know where we are. And so I needed something to kind of give me parameters for this world. So first episode, I'm just scratching my head going, what are we doing?
And then we have that one strange moment where the guy's choking and the wife is like, no, stop, or something like that. And it gets very intense.
It was to off-put you.
Yeah, and the lighting changes and the camera style changes because it was really
and the
broad.
laugh tracks drop out.
Yeah, it was a very interesting moment. I was like, woo.
I was like,
And
what's
I was
going
like,
on?
I'm confused.
And it was all triggered by the talk of children.
Well, no, it's where are you from?
Why don't you have
children? And then there was like this.
Yeah. So children is a theme through all this. Yeah. Because even in episode 2, we've got we're doing the talent show for the children. And we all chant the mantra in the audience.
In a creepy way.
And then we find out she's pregnant a few seconds later. So, and has a baby minutes after that. So there's a children theme going on here. I don't know what Wanda's going through with children, but it has something to do with it.
And that fits to the MCU canon of that's what in her in her alternate reality she creates. It's her and Vision having two children.
They're married, they have a wedding rings, they have kids,
sons,
they have a family, and they live normal lives,
yeah.
which is the one thing they were never allowed to have in reality.
Yeah.
So I kind of get that. All right, the color thing's kind of fun.
Yeah, I do like the color.
First episode is the toaster commercial, which the commercials I feel like have meaning as well too.
I don't know who the people are in the commercials, but they're significant. I am sure.
The toaster light is red. It's the only color happening, and
also,
it's a red beeping light. There's something to
every single commercial has like a tick or a beep that does the same pattern.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that.
It's some like.
Even the bathtub commercial?
There's a little like there's like chimes and it's like
okay.
it's like a hypnotic kind of weird pattern that I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I thought it was interesting.
Well, color represents everything from the outside world, outside the bubble that they're living in. The woman gets her hand cut, she bleeds red because she's an actual person.
Right.
Because I get the impression that we learned in episode 4 that these people are like abducted, missing people who are kind of trapped in
Wanda
this world.
takes over a town.
Literally. And the people inside of it.
And they're just stuck.
And they're stuck there playing these roles somewhat unwittingly, unwittingly.
I can't tell if they know or not. I mean,
they seem to go into little trances where it's like, what's going on? And they start to remember things.
But in episode 3 is when the neighbors are by the garden wall and the weird things are happening. And they almost tell Vision that something's wrong. And that's the thing I think is the most interesting is Vision doesn't know what's happening. Like, he's not aware.
Is he real? That's the question. Is he even reality?
I mean,
or is he part of Wanda's dream?
I think he's going to end up being reality and like, I don't know. He's got to be real because I think that's going to be part of the later plot is I think the fact that how he reacts to Wanda taking over a town and trapping humans, I think is going to be part of a later plot. I don't know, but
But where did he come from? He's dead. I don't, or not functioning anymore, whatever a robot
I would say, that's
but I'm hoping these questions will be answered.
Yes.
So we move into episode 2, and we've moved away from the Dick Van Dyke I Love Lucy era.
Yeah.
And now we've moved up into Bewitched.
Yes.
Which is a fun sitcom that kind of plays into the whole Scarlet Witch theme.
Yeah.
And
I never watched that, so I didn't get any of the references.
I grew up with it. I knew all
Dick
about
Van Dyke I knew, but I didn't get
totally
Bewitched
grew up with
at
Bewitched,
all.
but that house kind of favored the house, and it was the thing. And that episode to me clicked better.
Yeah.
I was starting to really get into it on that episode because I was engaged in the clues that they were dropping along the way.
Yeah.
And I was engaged in the story. And I really think that Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany carried that episode beautifully.
It was so fascinating to watch. I so believed them. It was the first time I really believed Vision and Scarlet Witch as a couple, as characters, and liked them.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm
totally
for
into
this.
It. And was totally felt like it was immersed in the style of the sitcom, and they fit so naturally. The comedy was good. I believed they were in that sitcom.
Yeah.
And so I really cocked in. So again, smart to put the first two together because first episode was a little off-putting. Second episode really clicked.
Yeah, and there's a few more moments that were like that first episode where things kind of aren't what they seem and you can see the things. Was that the episode? That was the episode where they find the helicopter in the bushes,
yes,
right?
The bushes,
colored helicopter.
The first helicopter, and it has the sword.
The sword. And that's why up until this point we don't know what sword is. We just see this logo. We see the logo throughout.
Marvel fans know what sword is.
It's a thing, but and we are trying to figure out what this logo is, and that's also Is this the one where the guy who looks like he's a beekeeper comes out of the sewer?
Yes, which they explain in 4.
Which they explain in 4.
Yeah.
Which I think was interesting. He looked like a beekeeper. I feel like that was an interesting choice.
It was fun.
There was bugs around him that I yet to understand why the bugs were significant.
Everything that passes into the bubble, into town, assumes an era-appropriate theme.
Yes.
It's like even the cord that was the air cord that was attaching to his suit, his space suit.
Right.
It turned into a plastic jump rope.
Yeah,
so
you're
everything
right.
takes on an era of that.
An era
so
appropriate.
So the drone became a helicopter from
Like
that era, a toy helicopter that would be appropriate in that era. Everything's time restrained.
Yeah.
So that's what the beekeeper
was.
Was the space suit. So he looked like a beekeeper.
It's just a very strange moment.
That's a rule that we now have in this world, and I like to know my rules.
And I'm sure we'll break them because this is what Wanda does.
Well, and we
she
really
breaks
bring
her own rules.
Geraldine into this too. Now I love Geraldine.
I love her so much.
And that's her in the world bubble name.
Yes.
The actor's name is Teyonah Parris, and she's
so good.
Phenomenal. Love her. She makes the show.
She really does.
Everyone's good, but she's really fantastic.
Well, and her and Elizabeth Olsen's dynamic is so good. Like the two of them play off each other.
Scene?
Yeah, that was so good.
But she's great in the show, and she's great outside the bubble. I mean, she plays the sitcom character and then becomes Rambo, the agent of S.W.O.R.D. outside the bubble.
Yes.
Equally believable in both roles.
Yeah.
Now, so you pointed this out to me before we started. I didn't know this. So Rambo is a Marvel character too.
Yes. So her mom, we were looking this up. Her mom is the best friend of Captain Marvel from the Captain Marvel movie.
She's the cute little girl in the movie.
And so she grows up and becomes. Her mom was the one who started S.W.O.R.D. after the whole Captain Marvel thing was like, oh look, aliens invaded Earth. We now need a space detection program because it's S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.W.O.R.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like an Earth-based thing. And they pay attention to what happens in outer space, but they don't deal with outer space. They deal with Earth.
Okay.
So S.W.O.R.D's supposed to be the thing that protects Earth from outer space, and they're the observation, and they're trying to like alert.
Any of this.
Yeah, this is like it's like pretty deep MCU canon, but it is Marvel Comics. But so when Captain Marvel leaves, they have this ship that they turned into a spaceship, and
I remember that.
And Captain Marvel like flies because now she has all the power, so she flies away and doesn't need a spaceship anymore. And so then Rambo keeps, her friend Rambo keeps the spaceship and then starts S.W.O.R.D.
Wow.
Based on that. And so then this is her daughter. So in episode 4, we learn that Captain Rambo has died. The mom has died, passed away while Rambo, our current Captain Rambo,
was on mission somewhere.
She was evaporated because she evaporated because that's why she comes. Does
she do that?
Yes,
I must have missed the
you
sushi
saw her
part.
because she like came back and she like rematerialized from being dust.
Oh yes.
So she was gone. She was during the snap. She disappeared during the snap while her mom was in the hospital.
Gotcha.
So her mom was coming back.
I saw that, but I was so lost.
No, her mom was coming back from surgery.
Wow.
So she was waiting for her mom, and then the snap happened, and she disappeared, which is why she was so disoriented.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That makes it so much clearer. I was so confused.
Yeah. So that's why she's not the head of S.W.O.R.D., and it's awkward because her mom was gonna.
Right, the other guy was.
Right, the other guy was because she was gone. She had snapped. And so she
do
was
that very well, by the way.
Thank you. I just learned how to snap like a few weeks ago, so I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, you do very well.
So she is now in this story as she gets kind of sucked into this town accidentally.
Yep,
she gets sent out on a mission because she's not allowed to go into space anymore because her mom put in protocol before her mom passed. That's like, if people come back after the snap, don't let them go to space. We're not sure if they're trustworthy. We don't know what's going to happen to people after they snap and come back.
Wow, I didn't know all this was part of it too.
Yes.
The TV show only has 9 episodes. Yeah. They can't explain very
they
much
really
of this.
can't. It's a
they
lot
really
of
count
Marvel...
on you knowing a lot of things already,
that's
which I think is not necessarily a good trait of the show.
Well, and Marvel, I think, could do it. They do it in all their movies. They really leave a lot to, like, you have to know the canon.
Yeah.
And it's because, in theory, if you've watched all the Marvel movies and at a drop of a hat can pull all of the little, like, references in all the Marvel movies,
again,
you'll be set.
Passive
but that's
fan.
a long line of movies and TV shows and then the comic books.
Well, something fun they also do is they also bring in some MCU characters, again, because this is such a departure from the MCU universe, to bring in, Randall Park as the FBI agent from Ant-Man, who's hysterical in that movie, to bring him in and then bring in Darcy from Thor, who one of the few characters that made Thor worth watching. If it weren't for Darcy and Loki, Thor would have been like getting having the flu. It'd be like, whoa.
I didn't love her as much in this as before.
No, they were trying a little bit. She was carrying a role of comic relief,
yes,
and she was having to carry it all by herself.
I love the actress. Like Kat Dennings is really funny, and she's got that quirky, like nerdy, like it's really fun. But she was not my favorite in this episode. In episode 4, she was not my favorite.
She's more balanced out in Thor, but they're both actors are fantastic.
Yeah,
and it's fun to see that movie connections brought into it. It feels a little bit random at times, but it's fun.
They try really hard to pull in ties to the other universe, to the MCU in their TV universe.
So we moved on to episode 3 and covered the Brady Bunch, which I thought was probably one of the most intriguing episodes of all of them. That one really, really lit my fire because so many cracks were starting to show. And again, for me, I'm waiting for cracks to show because I'm waiting for a plot to develop.
Right.
Because this is my one drawback about this whole teasing, sleuthy sort of mystery that we're going into is that you do have to get into it. We're almost halfway through this episode. I mean, it's like starting the conflict of a play at intermission.
Right.
We've sat through the entire Act 1 and we still don't know what we're dealing with. Care? So I feel like the show's runners are a little bit late in bringing the plot in.
I also feel like there's a little bit of a Lost vibe to it, the TV show Lost, where it's like, oh, we don't know, none of the characters know what's happening, we don't know what's happening, but that show started conflict as soon as the show started, which is why we could it was solving short-term conflict per episode for a long-term mystery.
This is not doing that.
And can Wanda and Vision blend in and be normal is not enough conflict for me to get super invested.
No.
It's just
and whether or not she can make dinner when she snaps her
when
finger.
She created the whole world that they live in.
Yeah, none of that's conflict. So for me, the problem with Lost is Lost was an NBC or an ABC series with 24 episodes a year.
Yeah.
So you had 24 episodes. This has 9.
Yeah, I don't know how they're
got time to dance around 24 episodes. You could explore a lot of territory.
And still have
9
enough
episodes,
story.
You've got to finish. You've got to get to the chase. So to me, they're taking too long getting
Do you
there.
think there's going to be a season 2? Do you think they're leading to... How in the world would we resolve any of the problems from season 1 and go into a season 2?
And we don't know the Disney Marvel pattern yet well enough to know if these series are standalones, one-hit wonders, and they just move on to something else, or I don't know.
Loki's coming out in... April? May? Something like that. Loki's coming out very soon.
Yeah, they're following it up right after with Falcon and
then Hawkeye is in production now. So
I don't know that we'll get back around to the show for years. I have no idea. So we'll see what Disney and Marvel come up with there.
Episode 3 was very interesting. I really liked the neighbors and the cutting of the wall when he was cutting the...
So bizarre.
And Vision was so confused. It was so interesting.
Well, see, and that's what I'm still don't understand with Vision. Is he picks up on it at one point and starts picking up on how strange things are, and then Scarlet Witch or Wanda just kind of rewinds everything and resets the show. She seems to be like an ongoing editor in the show. She has the ability to cut things.
But I think she's editing it for Vision.
Okay, for his sake?
I think to keep him from freaking out. So here's my guess. I don't know. My speculation is she's editing it to keep her world safe, and she knows that if Vision is aware that she's trapped an entire town and distorted reality because he is a morally good character.
Okay.
He is supposed to help people. That was what Jarvis was created to do, the Soul Stone. He is an empathetic character who is supposed to do good and not harm. I think if he realizes that she's doing this, he will get mad at her and he will leave and he'll make her stop. So I think she's self-editing to try to keep him in the dark.
He's really real.
That's the part I'm
just
confused
go back
about.
and forth. He's not supposed to be here. Okay, Hydra symbols keep showing up everywhere. Hydra has to be involved in this somehow. Ultron is possibly going to show up at some point in time. Possibly her twin brother, one of the versions of him.
Yeah.
From one of the different superhero movie sets, because there's been 2 of those.
Right, well...
Quicksilver's his name,
Quicksilver.
Right? There's been 2 Quicksilvers and 2 different companies of movies doing this.
It's technically an X-Men. And this is... And she's in...
This gets
canon,
more complicated.
She's technically Magneto's daughter in canon.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of play into that canon. And she and Quicksilver are both Magneto's kids in the original X-Men canon.
Gotcha. That's never come up in the movies.
It's come up briefly in X-Men movies when that version of Quicksilver existed.
And he may show up in this.
And now that Disney owns the whole wide world, he might show up. You never know.
It's possible. And if that happens, it's a different brother than Elizabeth Olsen acted with in Avengers.
But she also, this is what I'm confused of. If she has the power to bring everyone back from the dead, why didn't she just bring her brother back? Like, if she, like, why hasn't she brought her brother into it?
She can't make a dinner and she can't bring her brother back from the dead. Our powers are limited in many ways. So, all right, so we've gotten through up to episode 4. Which changes the game everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we follow Monica Rambeau back into S.W.O.R.D. and then...
we see how she got into Wanda's show to begin with.
Which I thought was fascinating.
Because Monica is interesting because she didn't show up in the show until she showed up in episode 2.
She's like in the crowd.
Yeah, she's like in the crowd,
she's in the little animated Bewitched thing at the beginning. You see her waving to them. She's there all along. You just don't talk to her until the third episode. Or second episode.
Yeah, she's briefly in the second and then...
she's been there.
The third, but yeah.
This episode 4 kind of follows that pattern too. It's almost like, reminds me of like, for those who are in the theater, there's a play called Noises Off.
Yeah.
And in the first act of this play, it's a play within a play. So you're watching the actors act out the play. Then at intermission, the set literally turns around and you're backstage and you're watching everything that happened in Act 1 from the backstage and all the chaos that was going on back there.
Yeah.
This is kind of what episode 4 is. Yeah. Suddenly we go back and we're like seeing everything from the opposite direction.
And a lot of things make sense, like why the plane shows up, why she has the sword symbol on her necklace, because, So it's fascinating that way. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different show.
Yeah. Which, again, I have a problem with the show a little bit because it's a different show every episode.
Yeah.
And it's hopping all over the place. And I'm like, well, as a storyteller, I'm thinking, okay, we're breaking a lot of basic rules here. And you're asking your audience to stay with you through a lot of transitions that are very choppy at times.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes for okay, now we're here. Oh, now we're doing this, and now we're this person, and now we're here. And to me, it's not as tight as I wish it were.
Yeah.
I feel it's a little loosey-goose in the hopping around. Now, I know everyone loves this. I'm going to get feedback. You're being so picky. And I know that we're all like starving for entertainment right now because the movies are shut down and, Mandalorian's over. Right. And so everyone's like just dying. So we're all wanting this to be fantastic. WandaVision is a good show. It's clever. It's well done. It's well performed. It's got problems. Is it a great show? Is it like the best show ever? No.
I think once it finishes, we're going to be like, oh, and that's the impact it's going to have. Yeah. It's just going to be like,
that was fun, and we'll move on to the next show.
Yeah.
It won't be one
We're
of those
all
shows
like,
that
and looky.
It's not one of those shows like changes the world kind of thing. So in that sense, it's loosey-goose, and I'm on a bumpy roller coaster ride that's kind of fun, but it's kind of bumpy and jarring too.
And I think I have a hard time with the way they've portrayed Wanda and Scarlet Witch, because at first you're like, oh, we really empathize with her, we feel for her, we want her, and then episode 4 kind of turns it on his head, and we're like, oh, she's maybe not... like, she's kind of the mastermind behind this. Yeah. And I don't know who I'm supposed to root for now.
I don't know who the hero is and who the villain is.
And I don't want to root for Vision because we don't know if he's alive yet.
Yeah.
And then you want Wanda and Vision to be happy. So it just added a lot of moral ambiguity there of like, how should I feel about these people? Yep. And we established, I think through the first 3 episodes, like, we want Wanda and Vision to be happy. They're having kids. She finally gets what she, has always wanted. And then episode 4, it's like, or maybe she's crazy. And maybe she trapped an entire town. And
what's
maybe
fun
it's
is
bad.
we have no idea where it's going.
No,
so
I have no clue.
Episode 5 dropped today. We're going to take a minute or 2 and watch
20.
episode 5 and come back with you because I have no idea what's going to happen next. So I know you're in the same place. You want to see what's going on. And then we'll see if we can take a stab at where we think it's going to go.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back. My mind is blown. I have no idea what just happened.
No.
So much happened so quickly.
Yes. And they packed a lot into 22 minutes of story.
It flipped the show on its ear, and to me it felt more like a Marvel movie/TV show than it has felt up to this point. Because now everything's kicked into high gear. We've got different plots fighting against each other. There's conflict now, which I've been begging for since the show started. Thank you very much.
We have a lot of it now.
And it's pulling all the ties together, and we're starting to get a picture of what's actually going on.
Right.
So Wanda, is she nuts?
I think so. Okay. I think it plays from that the original comic book storyline of that she kind of emotionally, if not, I don't think she's crazy, but
lost in grief.
She's lost in grief, and so she does everything within her power and is willing to trample over anyone and everyone to save her life as she wants it, which would be Vision. So we find out that she's gone in and taken Vision's corpse from a lockdown facility, which begs the question: is Vision really Vision, or is Vision
a manifestation
of her.
what she's done. I thought it was interesting. There's a theme in this episode, and they hit it right at the beginning with the babies and the pacifier. She's going to take a shortcut because the babies are crying. Mm-hmm. She wants them to stop. She's going to take a parent shortcut because she has powers and make them stop crying.
Yeah, put them to sleep.
Because she's tired and worn out. And what regular moms can't do is just magically wave their fingers or snap their hands and their children suddenly fall in line.
Yeah.
She's going to take a shortcut and make that happen. But it doesn't work.
No, I find it fascinating. Her sons aren't controlled by her.
They don't seem to be.
And they have some power to age themselves or do something at will. Yeah. Which is super interesting because she seems surprised at the fact she can't control her kids.
And I'm still fuzzy on what she can and can't control. She seems to be controlling the town, although she says she isn't.
I think she's created an alternate reality. Like, I think she's created an alternate reality. I don't think she's, like, actively controlling everyone. I think she just set up a bunch of rules that all the town people follow or something like that.
Okay. So begs the question of if she can't control everything, what can she control?
Yeah.
And people who've been under her control, Rambo's talking about how when she was in the bubble, she felt oppressed, her mind felt controlled, and she was uncomfortable and felt invaded.
And she felt a lot of grief.
And so we get into that, a lot of grief. She felt grief from Wanda.
So I think that was kind of the grief is the grief of her loss of vision is her driving force
behind what's happening. And the reason why she seems to be putting ethics aside and just captively holding this town in a prison against their will.
She didn't seem concerned about that at all.
She didn't seem everyone else seems concerned, but she didn't feel...
She doesn't seem to... It doesn't seem like it's her fault.
Which makes you think she's outside of her mind in some way.
Yes, that she's not seeing things clearly.
Yeah.
And honestly, they kind of recap some of her history.
From the Avenger movies.
From the Avenger movie.
Yeah.
And she's not... She was never an Avenger because she wants to do good. Like, she's not that was never her character. So I feel like this is in character for her. And she tends to, as she has the whole MCU, cause a lot of destruction to accomplish one goal. That's the whole, like, she brought down a building to try to stop a bad guy, but then it was like, oh, we brought down this whole... she doesn't think about those consequences.
She's a loose cannon.
She is. She has been from the beginning, and this just kind of plays into that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is the sword people, the people outside the bubble who are kind of watching in, seem to be splitting into two different camps. Yeah. Rambo and the agent from Ant-Man, I can't think of his name. But they seem to be on the side of she's not a bad person. She's trapped in some grief. Other people tend to want to treat her as a violent, terrible weapon who needs to be stopped with whatever force necessary.
That's been the MCU theme for years now of these people terrible terrorist weapons that destroy towns, which they do, and they hurt a lot of people, which they do, and we need to stop them? Or are they just flawed people who have big powers and that's kind of like just the price you pay? They're not that bad. So that's been, it's the classic MCU in a way that DC Comics never dealt with this problem. Yeah. This is the MCU problem of the last 10 years has been.
And it's fascinating.
It is. There's not.
And I'm so glad we finally got to it. It only took 5 episodes to get to it. But we're finally getting to the conflict and the themes of the show, which again, in my book, is a little bit late.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're finally getting around to it.
I wish we would have hinted more in the first episode or two.
This needed to be hinted all along and bring the story in.
I think there wasn't enough mystery, in my opinion. Like, there was little things off, but it was so together, especially in that first episode, that you kind of like, there wasn't enough to hook me in. I knew something was wrong, but I would have loved to know just a little more of what was wrong earlier on. It would have drawn me in. It would have just drawn me in better.
So where does it go from here? That's the question.
Well, the big end of the episode, Vision's figured it out.
Yep. And
Vision
he seems
knows
to be aware now that she's holding everybody captive and that she somehow forced all this to happen, but she's still denying it.
She says she doesn't know how it started. That's all she said. When she was like, I'm not controlling everything, which I don't think she's controlling everything.
She's not. The dog dies.
Yeah, and she seemed surprised.
She seemed surprised, and I can't imagine she would take the dog that her boys love.
No, and then take it away from her.
And let that happen. She's not in control of every aspect of this
and the dog seemed to surprise her this whole time, which makes me wonder how much her boys are in control of things, too. And what powers her sons have, because they are...
And what are they?
Right. Begs another question. How Scarlet Witch and Vision had children. If he's not alive, and not a human, which they very clearly establish in the episode where he chews gum and all of his gears get so we're not sure how those kids even exist and what they are, but she doesn't have control of them. And I wonder what they do have control over. If the dog showing up was her, or if the dog showing up was them, and then the consequences of that happen to just be the world that they live in.
Is Agnes the neighbor involved?
Agnes
the dog dies at her house.
She seemed very upset.
She did?
But she seemed upset after the kids implied that Scarlet Witch could bring
him back to life.
Them back to life. Agnes like perked up immensely when she was like, you can do that. And that seemed, what I love about Catherine Hahn is you can tell which lines are in character and which lines are out of character and which ones are her like TV show persona versus the person.
All the actors in this episode were fantastic about going back and forth.
It was so interesting.
And it was so interesting to see them slipping out of her control and going back into her control and slipping out. It was really fascinating.
Well, even the mailman who's like, I'm sure your mom won't let it. Like the way he said it, I was like, there's so much like so many context cracks, and subtext.
There's so many cracks in the control panel right now that it's hard to see where this is going to go. It could explode in any direction. Yeah. And that makes it fun. That makes the next 4 episodes going to be fun to watch.
Well, and then Quicksilver.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
So then we blow up the MCU again, and I could just see this is like the Luke Skywalker moment at the end of Mandalorian, because it suddenly brings...
I've not watched Mandalorian.
Oh, okay, well... different episode. Just rewind.
It's fine. It's fine.
Don't get that.
I'm not surprised because it's Star Wars. But...
Anyhow, there's Quicksilver is back. Her brother, after the whole debate about whether you can bring the dog back from the dead or not, she does not do it.
She doesn't do it, and I don't think it's because she can't. And I think her boys looked at each other. She tried to break the rules with a
pacifier.
No, she did.
And it
but I
didn't
wonder
work.
if the boys could have brought the dog back. This is what I was wondering. When they looked at each other, she said, no, you can't age out of it. And I'm wondering if they were going to age out of it or if they were going to fix it. Because they weren't upset until after...
What if the boys brought the brother back?
That's what I'm wondering, if the boys brought the brother back because they saw how sad she was that her brother was gone, because she seemed surprised. And I think there's another like power at work. Or... her grief is just controlling the whole, like, it's her grief that's controlling it, not her conscious mind.
Interesting.
That's the other, what I don't know is if it's just her grief.
Here's the casting thing.
I loved it so much.
She doesn't bring back her brother from Avengers.
No.
That poor guy can't catch a break. That actor got cut out of the Avengers 5 minutes after going in.
He only had like 6 lines.
Now his character's brought back to life, because everybody in MCU is brought back to life and gets a TV show. So he didn't get to be in this either. They brought back the Quicksilver from the X-Men movie series.
Which goes back to the original comics, because she's an X-Men in the original comics. She's not an Avenger. She works with the Avengers, but she's an X-Men, which I thought was a brilliant tie back to the X-Men.
Yeah.
Because that was when they brought her and Quicksilver in, they're like, well, we already have a Quicksilver in the X-Men universe, which is owned by different people.
Right.
Not anymore. But at the time was owned by different people. And there was some like debate when they brought her into the MCU, because they're like, she's a mutant. That was the original. She's not messed with her powers aren't from the stone. They're from
I thought she got them from when she touched the Mind Stone.
In the MCU, she did.
So confusing.
In the original comics, she was a mutant with her brother.
Okay. Yes.
Which now is going to make
Evan Peters, who's a whole different actor. And even Vision even makes the crack. So you recast your brother?
No, Darcy does. Darcy's like, you recast the brother?
Yeah. You're like, what just happened?
Either they brought the brother, like, I just don't know. And I don't know what this means for the X-Men universe.
Which is just been added to Disney Plus.
And
is being talked about being lumped in with the Marvel universe.
And it is part of the Marvel universe.
But Hugh Jackman's a busy man. I don't know if they can get him.
I don't know that they'll get him, but I don't know that that's a problem. Because they redid everything with Days of Future Past in the X-Men universe.
Oh, that's true. There's like 4 or 5 X-Men
We've restarted the series so many times.
Goodness.
But now this really begs the question, how much of a crossover the X-Men going to have with the Avengers now? And that's been something
Do you think this could be leading into that?
Oh, absolutely. I think when they brought him in, because that's what people have wanted for years, is that because they were a team originally, and it was like the X-Men and the Avengers, and then there were some folks that crossed over, like Scarlet Witch, so
the Comic-Con universe is buzzing right now.
Because this nods to the fact that there are those 2 cinematic universes, and I think that they're gonna start kind of coming together under Disney,
and they crashed on the set of Family Ties.
Exactly.
So let's just safe it to say MCU has just taken everything and toss it on its ears, which I applaud that.
Yeah.
It's brave.
Yeah.
This whole series is a whole new turf for them, and they just throw caution to the wind and they jump in.
Just try and stuff.
And to me, I applaud that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, and I hate to be disparaging of DC, but I think DC plays everything too close to the chest. They take everything way too seriously and try to keep everything exactly like it should be to appease everyone. And MCU just goes for it.
MCU has the benefit of not having had all of the years of the cartoons and all of the years of canon that DC has to honor. Like Superman and Batman and those characters.
And their 5,000
5,000 hours of TV and movies that already exist. And then trying to rework that and get a satisfying plot that satisfies all the nerds and all the different canons. It's a hard undertaking. And Marvel, when they started with Iron Man forever ago, Iron Man was not a popular character. No one cared about him. That's why they started the movie with Robert Downey Jr. with him. Because they're like, if nothing works out, like if the movie bombs, no one cares.
No great loss.
He's not a big character. And so I think they really were smart when they did that, because now they don't have to pay attention to the comics. Yeah. They kind of established that like, we just kind of do what we want. We'll change it. Iron Man became a better character because of the MCU. Yeah. They didn't let the comic books. They took him as inspiration and then moved on. DC feels like they have to stick to the canon because it's so intense. And I feel like that's what Marvel they were smart when they picked who they were going to put in their cinema.
Absolutely. And I think this show's smart. And I think this show's building into a fun direction. It'll be exciting to see where it goes.
The pacing's still weird, because this pacing felt
a whole different
so
show.
Different.
It's such a different show again. But I'm with it. I'll stay with it.
Yeah,
and I'll find out what happens.
I'm
and hopefully you
intrigued.
guys will stay with it too.
Yeah.
4 more episodes to go. Maybe we'll come back at the end and recap the whole thing.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
there's be so much to unpack.
So interested to see how the next steps go, especially with Quicksilver.
Well, we're going to cover other things on Cine-pop Reacts as well too, but we'll probably definitely come back and wrap this up. But thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks.